And hello everyone and welcome to the Copyright 2.0 show, episode number 325, a quarter of the way between 300 and 400, what that means. My name is Jonathan Bailey. I can be found at plagiarismtoday.com, and joining me, as usual, the man who wishes he was in Paradise City where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. It is Patrick O'Keefe of the iFroggy Network at ifroggy.com. Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. It's been a busy week for you, though, what I've seen.
Yeah, been busy doing things and launched a new personal site design, patrockeefe.com. So
that's where I was headed with that.
Getting back to writing about things that aren't related to community management.
I don't know what to think of you anymore, honestly. This idea of you not doing community management exclusively, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Well, you know, I am a human person.
Really?
Yeah, and so I have other interests.
Everyone, pay attention. Patrick O'Keefe is not a robot.
Yeah, so I have other interests, and I used to write about things more years ago. But at some point, and I mean, part of it was replaced by Facebook and Google Plus and Twitter, partially. And then, you know, as time went by over the last couple of years, I just wanted to get back to having a personal site and to write about what I want to write about and reflect on what I want to reflect on. And I don't know, looking forward to it for a while, so I decided that April 27th, being 10 years from the day that I launched my personal blog initially, April 27, 2004, I decided that was the perfect time to put a new site together and launch it, and that's what I did. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, it looks great. It's got it's not just that you started writing content for it again. It does have a brand spanking new theme, very, very modern, very classy.
Thank you.
I like it lots. I did not know you had an Instagram account. This is news to me.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess it makes sense now that you're in the smartphone era. You have to have one. It's like an obligation. It's legal.
Yeah, I haven't had it that long, to be fair, since December. So, you know, I've had the account for probably a couple years. I don't know, something like that. But I wish I had signed up sooner so that I could have gotten Patrick O'Keefe. Unfortunately, I have to settle for Patrick B. O'Keefe. But yeah, I use it when I can, and definitely having a smartphone with a camera has you know, pushed me to actually start to use it. And I don't know, I think. What's your Instagram account name? Is it Plagiarism Today?
It's Plagiarism Today, yeah.
And I already follow you. Okay, yeah, you bastard.
Yeah, I don't actually post anything on it, so there you go.
Just teasing. Yeah, your last post was July 2012. So yeah, I mean, why would you notice?
Yeah, why would you notice?
Yeah.
But I've got to say, you've got the most epic author tagline on that site.
Okay.
It reads, "Managing online communities for 14 years." Coincidentally, that's as long as Crystal and I have been together.
That's a community I've had to manage, but boy, is it tough.
Author, speaker, and then Diddy is my life coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he know this?
Not specifically. No. Yeah, it's just kind of a thing I've thought of before, and I don't know, life coaches, and I don't know how I feel about that whole thing, but I'm sure some do a great job, but there's a lot of people popped over the last few years that are life coaches all of a sudden, and I find that kind of funny, and also I think more than anything else, Diddy is my life coach because I'm guided by a lot of things he does, and that's really inspiration to me professionally and creatively. So yeah, it's kind of a fun line, and I'm planning on expanding on that a little bit here when I have some time with the blog and with some other things I'm looking at.
Life lessons from Diddy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn there, and I definitely have, so I'm a big fan.
Well, I've been ending up watching the Fiat commercial with Diddy in it a lot lately. It's been coming up a lot on Hulu and so forth.
Yeah, I have seen it actually on. Well, I've seen it on actual television recently too, which it was the Super Bowl commercial. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm like the last person to see it, but now it's like almost every commercial break on like Cosmos and so forth. It seems like I'm seeing it. So.
Oh yeah, it's a great commercial. I love it. I don't know. And you get the full version on. I don't know if you've watched the full version on the Fiat USA YouTube channel. It's about a minute. It's about a minute long, and it's got a few extra things in it that I like, that I laughed at. So I recommend checking out the whole thing.
Well, there you go. I will probably take a look at exactly that. But yeah, no, the blog looks great. Glad to see you back doing it. Looking forward to keeping up with it. I need to put this in my if this then that. That's how I subscribe to blogs these days. I just get them emailed to me.
Yeah, I do the same. I mean, I abandoned my feed reader long ago. I still have the OPML file. I got that because I used to use blog lines when blog lines was iffy. It got bought out. It's still there, but I think it's still there. But I downloaded the OPML file, and I don't know, just got overwhelmed with that and just decided to stop looking at it. And so I really only subscribe to about 7 blogs now, 7 sites really, and they're all friends of mine, and it includes Plagiarism Today, so you know. And it's all emailed to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find it just works better and fits better, and I don't know, I just more efficient right now.
I've got about 24 blogs I subscribe to, most of them copyright related. Some are friend blogs, like I'm going to add this one when I get a moment in just a minute. When I get a moment in just a minute.
Yeah, and I have an email subscription thing through MailChimp if you want.
You do? Oh.
Yeah, it's under subscribe in the top menu.
Oh, thank you for that heads up, and I'll just do that real fast.
Yeah, you can just type it in there. Subscribe to MailChimp.
Hey, how are you?
MailChimp has a really good. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you about to say?
I was going to say that MailChimp, when FeedBurner was, FeedBurner is still out there, but there's this whole thought that it might, it's unstable. Google doesn't seem to be putting any resources behind it. They let the Japan domain expire, etc. So months ago, 2012 actually, many months ago, a year and a half ago, I decided to just move everything over to, first of all, my own domain.
Mm-hmm.
No more FeedBurner stuff.
Yeah.
But I use FeedBlitz, I think it is, to power it, but it's under my own domain, so I can always just redirect people to whatever I use at the time, and don't have to worry about having a middleman. And that also cut off FeedBurner's emails. So FeedBlitz charges for emails. That's sort of their pricing model, to charge per email subscriber. So I really didn't need that. And so I have MailChimp doing a really kind of very easy to set up, but still very nice RSS to email feature, where people can subscribe, and they offer a certain number of free emails a month, which I comfortably fall under. So works really well. And if anyone's looking for any kind of service for email subscription for the blog, to offer for your own blog, it's great. And of course, MailChimp is a tremendously well-reviewed and popular service, and really seem to know what they're doing.
Coincidentally, it's also how I manage Plagiarism Today's email newsletter.
Okay, there you go.
I do not fit underneath the free cap you just mentioned.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have many subscribers.
Well, you do now. I just subscribed.
Oh, number? I think that makes it 25 or something like that. I literally have like 20 to 30 subscribers on that blog.
Well, there you go. That's a 4% increase in your subscriber base in one day.
Okay. Well, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Drop the mic. Yeah, I'm a big fan of MailChimp as well. Like I said, I have well north of 500 right now. So I'm on like the second pay tier. I think it's like 300 unders free or something like that. What's the free one again? What's the free one?
I don't know. Is that where I get the post notifications through MailChimp?
Yeah, probably.
I guess I should have known that then. Yeah, I should have known that. Oh well.
But yeah, you get it probably through MailChimp. And like I said, I'm on like the second tier of their subscriber base. It's fine. It's reasonable. It's like I said, you point out they have a great emailed RSS thing. You can schedule it. You can design a pretty theme. Really, MailChimp should be paying for this.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. They may, I don't know if they'd receive benefit from it or not, but I've known MailChimp to sponsor podcasts and things. I've definitely.
That's true. Well, MailChimp. When I was at a bar camp event here in New Orleans type thing, MailChimp was there. They just showed up in spades. They had like a couple of people here, and they gave out T-shirts, and they handed us Crystal and I, a MailChimp T-shirt. They handed me it because I was a user, and Crystal stole my T-shirt. So MailChimp, if you get me another T-shirt, we'll call this promotion square.
Okay, and just to say the free level is up to either 2,000 subscribers or 12,000 emails a month. That's the free tier. So
I would go over the 12,000 free emails a month.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, I can do I'm underneath 2,000 subscribers, but I definitely need more emails than that.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my Mario shirt today in honor of Bob Hoskins.
Oh yes.
Passed away, unfortunately. I was thinking about it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and one of the few stuffed animals that I still have from childhood is a Roger Rabbit that I really like, and I'm really still proud of. And I remember my great-grandmother giving it to me. And I remember I love that movie, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I'm definitely gonna pull it up soon. It's actually on Netflix now, so that's
wow! I did not know this. Today I learned.
It's on Netflix, and according to Can I Stream It, that's the only service that you can stream it on right now, at least for us in the U.S. So definitely check it out, and I'm planning on watching it, maybe getting Sean and Trent together here, and who knows, maybe the whole family together, and we'll watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit in honor of Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, that sounds good. That would be a good way to honor his memory. His performance really carried that movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Because
it'll be
without
interesting because it's almost like a new movie to me now. I mean, it could be 20 years, which is amazing since
yeah,
I've seen it.
I've seen it much more recently than that. I've seen it like
Yeah.
a couple years ago, but yeah, I mean that's the thing going when I rewatched it. I realized, now these days like green screen and all that, it's like everybody does that, The new Star Wars movies were pretty much shot entirely on green screen, not the new one they're shooting now, but the old new, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the last three.
The last three they did were practically entirely shot in front of a green screen. So that's not unusual, but even like the scene where Eddie Valiant goes to Toontown, he does all that acting to nothing. There's a really interesting YouTube clip that shows the before effects and after effects.
Oh yeah.
It lets you see, what he was actually working with. It was actually a blue screen for most of it in his case, not a green screen. But it shows you what he was working with, and you realize, wow, acting that well in front of literally nothing. That's damn impressive. So, he will be missed. Great actor. Also played Smee in Hook.
Yep.
If anyone's curious about that, that's another iconic role from my childhood. So, I don't know how popular that movie
Yeah,
is.
no, I saw that. I saw that movie. It's been a while again, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so he's actually had a lot of really good roles, but he's gonna be missed. It's a tragedy, and I learned about it last night. Got the AP alert, and it was kind of sad, honestly, because like I said, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of my favorite movies of all times. So I guess and to this day I still do the hi Eddie, bye Eddie whenever I'm saying goodbye to people sometimes, just to annoy them. And it's also introduced me to Smile Darn You Smile, the song. That actually is a song from a cartoon that predates the movie by quite a bit. It's an old black and white cartoon. You should check it out sometime. But introduced me to that, which I used to annoy the hell out of people when they were being glum for no reason. I usually either get them to go away or they become happy. It's a win-win, really.
Right.
Think about it. They either leave or they get happy. I mean, you can't lose. But yeah, so indeed will be missed. Anything else going on we need to talk about real fast?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I know. It's been kind of a quiet week of Bob Hoskins' death, and that includes copyright news, oddly enough. Yeah, folks, last week was definitely a winner for copyright news. This one, a little less exciting, a little less, scandal and nuance. It was still a lot of great stories to talk about and a lot of stuff to go into today. So, you want to just kick it off and light the candle?
Let's do it.
All right, well, starting off is, oh, jeez, okay, oh, wow, they've updated this article since I just last read it this morning. Holy crud. This is what I get. You can look at this. It says it was updated 12/30, April 30th, and April 30th is when we're recording this. I checked it at 9 a.m. this morning when I was just double-checking my show note work. I double-checked it, and then here it is, a completely different article. But yeah, we have news from the U.S. Trade Representative. They have, first off, the original story was that they had removed the Philippines from the Special 301 report that we talk about every year. In fact, that new one I believe is coming up. I don't think it's out yet. Or is it out?
I will check.
Patrick, I think you are more familiar with this story now than I am because you read it recently.
Well, let's see. China,
Damn you,
India,
Chicago.
not a big fan of American copyright. That's the nation here. India is a big focus of this article, though, because it talks a lot about their patent policies as it applies to pharmaceuticals, and that's kind of half the article, if not more. And then it kind of really the whole article almost is about India, because not only is it about pharmaceuticals, but about software. Where they say that in India you can get a copy of Windows 7 for 100 rupees or $1.66, compared to about $100 for an original copy. And they even quote a seller who said he's more concerned about his daily wage of 130 rupees. So if you do the math, he gets paid about $2 a day. So I mean, it's a different world when you think about the economics of it.
Yeah. Well, the original article was about the Philippines. And the fact that on Obama's stop in the Philippines. He's doing a tour of Asia, apparently. He told the country that basically it was announced that the Philippines has been removed from the Special 301 report. They were put on the watch list, which is like the lowest tier of the report. Basically, every year, the U.S. Trade Representative gets together and name and shames a bunch of countries that it feels isn't doing enough to enforce copyright and intellectual property issues. And it's called the Special 301 report. It's actually due out sometime in the next week, this year's report. But they went ahead and announced that the Philippines is not on the report this year. They said that the Philippines has done a great deal to tighten and enforce to pass new legislation and enforce the existing legislation to reduce the amount of piracy taking place within the country. So they viewed the steps as positive and said, you know, that we're taking them off the report. And that was met with actually a fair amount of celebration in the Philippines. So that was the original article. I don't even recognize what this one's about anymore. They've updated it, and now it is something totally different. It's kind of weird, you know? I mean,
like I said, the article really is about India, and just about how the U.S. decided, even though India is a problem for them, they didn't want to push it to the next level of putting the worst offender tag on them. And doing that because it could lead to trade sanctions. So they're kind of on the priority watch list still, and more of that urging and lobbying and negotiation and diplomacy before pushing them up to the next level. And of course, it said China, they have significant concerns. I mean, China's been a significant concern for a very long time, so nothing terribly new there. But the USTR did remove Italy from the blacklist altogether. Apparently after it took new steps to combat copyright piracy over the internet, and actually the 301 report looks like it came out. I'm looking at it right now.
I think this is a sign. It just came out literally hours ago, and I haven't even had a chance to review it before getting on this podcast because I did the 3 count. Oh God. Yeah,
I'm looking at it now. Let me see. Is there an area here where they summarized? Here's the executive summary. Let's see if there's something real quick I can reflect on here that, you know, maybe some sort of change. They say, let's see.
Okay, and one interesting side note here, and this was something that was mentioned in the Philippines article, the original version of what we're reading now. I'm not going to link to the Chicago Tribune again. They tend to pull the rug out from underneath me here. Pretty bad here.
Just keep the old outdated article up for Jonathan.
Yes, and then put a new article and then link it. You know, say links are a thing. You don't have to change the entire freaking article when something new happens. You can do an update that doesn't completely trash the original content. But anyways, yeah, they put India on the priority watch list rather than making it the worst offender, because like you said, the worst offender is the one that typically is eligible for trade sanctions. However, there was a lot of lobbying effort among corporations, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, to make India the worst offender because of its copyright and its copyright and patent rules. So apparently that did not happen. The lobbying did not work. It remains where it is. Who is the worst offender this year? Is it still Ukraine?
Well, they did an investigation into Ukraine, and that's actually mentioned in this article. They said no action should be taken against them, which I guess Ukraine was named the top priority foreign country.
Yeah, which is the highest
year.
ranking, yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe that's different from worst offender. Different labels.
Yeah,
but
basically it's the same thing, same label, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess. Yeah. I guess it is. And there's a headline. There's a section of the report. It says determination in Section 301 investigation of Ukraine, and let's see. It says they were designated the priority foreign country in 2013, and let's see. Based on information obtained during the investigation, the U.S. Trade Representative determined that these acts, policies, and practices are unreasonable and burden or restrict the United States commerce, but due to current political situation in Ukraine, no action will be taken.
Russia. Oh, sorry.
So due to the current climate, no action. You know, there is something here, positive developments mentioned in the report, and I'll tell you the countries that are listed under there. Positive developments include Algeria, because it submitted an instrument to accession to the WIPO Internet treaties. China is listed under positive developments because they enacted important amendments to their trademark law, including provisions to combat trademark squatting, expand protection to sound marks, permit multi-class registration, and streamline application and appeal procedures. The European Union is listed as a positive development because it introduced a proposal for a directive of the Parliament and of the Council, so many long names. This directive would harmonize civil trade secret law throughout the EU, so they welcome that. Israel is on the positive developments because they passed patent legislation that satisfied its commitments under the 2010 Memorandum of Understanding with the U.S. Italy, as we mentioned earlier, removed because of their regulations regarding copyright piracy over the internet. Paraguay, another positive development, they signed a regulation that created a National Directorate of Intellectual Property. The Philippines was removed from the watch list in the 2014 Special 301 report because of their collective weight of a series of significant legislative reforms. And that's it. Those are the positive developments. So
that's all the positive copyright news for the entire world for the year. That's everything. Good night, everybody. We're going home.
Yeah, for the countries anyway.
Wait, we both are home.
Well, it sounds like, you know, I don't know if there's more that were removed from the list, but the article obviously mentioned Italy. But as we find out here in the 301 report, what was the other one I mentioned? Was it another country was removed? Did I say that?
Philippines.
Yeah, Philippines. Philippines was removed from the list. So the list currently has how many countries? Currently has 37 countries. I wish they had somewhere easily where you could see the cycling. Like, what was the movement of all the movement? Maybe that's all there was, and that's why they're mentioning
like the NCAA rankings, like see the up and down.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know who was removed, who was added. That's, I mean, who moved where? Like, the priority watch list is now Algeria, Argentina, Chile, China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Russia, Thailand, and Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
That's the priority watch list right now. So, and Ukraine is somewhere in limbo, I guess, because of the current issues going on over there. Okay.
Yeah, it would be kind of difficult to issue sanctions against Ukraine at the moment. I have to acknowledge that. It'd be difficult politically. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh well. It's just that's interesting that I put this in there last night. I assembled the show notes last night like a good boy, thinking I'd come read this nice little article about the Philippines being removed from the priority watch list today, and then find the entire article change and the 301 report's out, and yeah. So while it's great news that the 301 report is out, I'm caught flat-footed here.
Yeah, and finally, one last note relevant to later in the show: Canada is still on the list, on the secondary list, just on the watch list. And yeah, our neighbor to the north is still on the list.
Due to, I would suspect, copyright policies, including lack of a takedown process and other, I were to guess.
Yeah, they mentioned, let's see, I'll try to scan this big paragraph. U.S. urges Canada to implement its WIPO Internet Treaties commitments.
Including the DMCA takedown, or a similar DMCA-like process.
Yeah, the U.S. has concerns about how Canada deals with pharmaceuticals and the administrative process for reviewing regulatory approval of pharmaceutical products. They have serious concerns about the lack of clarity and impact of the heightened utility requirements for patents that Canadian courts have applied recently, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the main items.
Yeah, well, there you go. That is interesting. I had no idea the report was out, and now it's out. And so I'm glad I put that at number 1. It was really interesting. When I was assembling the show notes, I thought it was kind of a weak lead-off, but now it's the obvious lead-off.
This was a big week for copyright news.
Yes, now it's a big
Just give us a few hours.
Just give us a few more hours. We'll get through it, and we'll actually have a real show for you. Excuse me. Well, let's turn the tables to other sort of quasi-international news and talk about DVDFab, a DVD ripping application for your Windows, Mac, and I'm assuming other various platforms. Not that there are many, probably not any other platforms actually. Basically speaking, DVDFab, what it does is it allows you to decrypt and rip, i.e. move the contents of a DVD to your hard drive. Now, DVDs are encrypted with what's known as AACS encryption. And the actual organization that manages this encryption is, wait for it, the AACS. I know, it's a terrible surprise, isn't it? It's just so shocking. Long story short, though, in the United States, even though the AACS encryption's been broken for as long as I can been doing copyright, at least since 2005, it is still technically illegal in the U.S. to engage in the sale and trade of software and tools to decrypt it. Now, this was something we actually ran into when doing Garbage Horror, the reviews we did there. If we could legally decrypt the DVD to get the clips, we would. It was just faster. But we didn't want to illegally rip it, so sometimes we had to do screen grabs and so forth. And it took a little more time, but we got around it legally. We did not use a service or a product like DVDFab, however, to just simply do it that way. But DVDFab faced a very, very broad seizure of their assets, including domains, social media accounts, and monetary assets in the United States. Basically, they were pretty effectively shut down because, think about it. Their credit card processing went through the U.S. All their domains were .coms, which are U.S. controlled, and all their social media accounts were Facebook, Google+, etc., all U.S. oriented. All of them got seized, pretty much putting the company out of business for a pretty extended period of time. Now, at first they didn't fight it, which is why the preliminary injunction was issued, but now they're going back to court, seeking the return of their quote-unquote property, saying that it was seized illegally because the order was overly broad. They are a Chinese-based company, and according to them, their software is legal in many other nations. It is only illegal in the United States, and therefore the injunction was overly broad, and they should be given access to a lot of their stuff back because it should only be limited to sales in the United States, not anywhere else. So, yeah, that's their basic argument.
I mean, there's a larger issue here. This issue in particular seems fairly straightforward because .com is, of course, U.S. controlled. So, I mean, it'll be interesting, but I think that's where it'll struggle. But it kind of represents the larger issue that many other countries and many other citizens of other countries have with the Internet. Even though it was developed by the military here in the U.S., this sense that the U.S. Shouldn't control the Internet. And so, that's the thing. .com is the preeminent domain name, certainly, but there are other ones, and obviously this organization has moved to other ones, yes. But yeah, I mean, that's the larger issue here. But I think as far as the domain names go, that's going to be a hard issue as it stands right now, and apparently I guess we've seen the domain names fall in these issues in the past.
And I think it's going to be a hard issue on everything. I think the same issues come up not just on domains, but on the social media accounts and the credit card processing. Because when you sign up for a Facebook account, read your terms of service. Somewhere bearing there says you agree to subject yourself to the laws of whatever state in the United States, for example. Probably California in the United States. And that's the rules, because otherwise the TOS would be unenforceable for people that sign up from other countries.
Yeah, anything in the U.S. is going to be hard. Of course, there's organizations like, I don't know, Anonymous, let's say that maintain accounts on Facebook and Twitter and other sites that, I don't know, a lot of people would feel, including the government, the United States government would feel are breaking some law, and yet there's an exception there because of, let's say, perceived freedom of speech. So, yeah, I don't know if it's a black and white issue, but I think, like you alluded to, anything that's U.S. based is going to be hard for them to get back as the matters stand right now.
Yeah, because, like I said, they subjected themselves to U.S. jurisdiction, so there you go.
And when you say seized, like social media account was seized, now are you saying that they seized the account itself to preserve it, or that the terms of service, Facebook, Twitter just opted to simply terminate the account?
It's hard to say. This article doesn't make it clear, honestly. Okay. I suspect, though, it was probably actually seized and shuttered by the government and preserved, too. So I suspect it wasn't just shuttered outright.
Yay! But, yeah. The government can get my Twitter account.
Yes, they can. We've known this. This is not news. Yeah, but basically speaking, they're going to have they've got a very tough sell here. Basically, I'm with you. They've subjected themselves to U.S. jurisdiction by using these services. What they were doing was illegal in the U.S. Therefore, the U.S. has the right to take a step in and seize these assets. May not like it, may not be comfortable with it, but it's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So I mean. And that should give you pause to think when you sign up for services in a country that is not your own. If I signed up for like VKontakte or something like that, I would be subjecting myself to the laws of Russia in that case. So it's food for thought. Whenever you sign up for a service, you're probably subjecting yourself to the laws of a foreign country. And it might pay to know what those laws are and if your business or activities are illegal in said country. Just food for thought. Well, here's an interesting question that I'm looking forward to seeing how the courts address, if they actually address it. James Franco is being sued over the film rights to a Charles Bukowski novel. Now, I'll come clean and say I know very little about Mr. Bukowski's work. I'm sure someone will fill me in the chat or elsewhere very quickly. But long story short, Charles Bukowski was described in this article by Eric Gardner at the Hollywood Reporter Esquire as being a semi-autobiographical novel, ham on rye. And apparently James Franco got the movie rights to that book, and recently began working on an actual film for it. Well, now those who hold the rights to the book are suing, saying that the rights he acquired expired in 2010. Which raises a very weird question. And this article says that in January 2009, Franco and Humphreys, Cyril Humphreys is the person who's managing the rights here, entered into an agreement to allow the actor to develop a film based on the novel. And those rights terminated in November 2010. That is a very short period of time to terminate rights for a film.
Seems like it. Yeah, I don't know. Not my business firsthand, but...
I mean, it would be hard for me to imagine getting a movie greenlit in that time, and then getting it made, especially.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily know. We haven't read the complaint. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Did they have to get it greenlit? Did they have to pay a certain advance? I mean, what was the? Did something have to change hands by a certain date? I mean, if they didn't have to make it within that time, but maybe they had to do something, submit a draft, do something, anything, some sort of action. So we really don't know, but that's what they're claiming. That would have been a year and 10 months.
Yeah, but I mean, even just getting a film greenlit can be very difficult in that amount of time. I mean, it can be very difficult to even get a script written.
But James Franco, if someone's going to do it, I mean, you want a current star, and James Franco certainly is someone who, if he tells someone he wants to do a project, I mean, chances are he'll get an answer.
He's a very bankable star. There's no doubt about that.
Now.
If anyone greased the wheels of Hollywood, it would be James Franco. You've got no doubt there.
No, I mean, he's not the biggest star in the world, but I mean, he's part of that class of star right now that if he wants to do something, chances are he can find someone to greenlight it, unless it's just the worst idea in the world, which I don't know if this is.
Yeah, but I mean, the main thing is, though, those rights terminated, but apparently he still went forward with working on the film for some reason. Or we don't know if this is... One thing is it could be a miscommunication on when the rights actually terminated. The other thing is it could be he just didn't know. But anyways, for some reason, he went forward, according to the complaint, with the film, despite the rights being terminated, and it raises a pretty interesting question. Is what Mr. Franco is allegedly doing an infringement? After all, we know facts, dates, etc. cannot be copyrighted, meaning that elements of an autobiography do not qualify for copyright protection. However, of course, the creative expression and the unique way in which those facts are presented can and do qualify for copyright protection.
Right.
And that's one of the things Eric Gardner's calling this a semi-autobiographical novel leaves a lot of room for interpretation, too.
Yeah.
So,
when you come down to interpretation, you're talking about what is a fact and what isn't in some cases.
Exactly.
And, you don't have the author here to tell you that anymore. No. I mean, so that's the person who would know, unless you were to, I don't know, who could you bring in? You could bring in family members, friends who may have been there at the moments he wrote about, but that seems sketchy. So, you have to have someone who was there to testify if something was a fact. Ideally, you have to have the person who wrote it because they're the one, who would know. He doesn't have that, or they don't. The person who owns the rights now doesn't have that, or at least asserts the rights doesn't have that. So that's kind of the tough thing too. It's, if you have a set of facts and then you say, okay, they added this, then okay, that's an expression from the book, but how do you get that line? I don't know. It's gonna be tough.
Okay, real fast, I pulled up James Franco's IMDb because I was curious about something. 2009, we think of him as a big bankable star today. Pretty bankable, at least, because he did Oz the Great and Powerful, This Is the End, a bunch of other movies that did pretty well. I was curious to see what he was doing back then. He had just finished Pineapple Express.
That was 08, yeah.
And was in Milk in 08, but had not yet done like Eat, Pray, Love or Date Night or anything like that. So it was kind of an in-between phase there for him.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know. I mean, he had done
either.
Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, though. You have to remember.
That's true. But
those are big box office movies.
Yeah, those were 2005, 2006, 2007, right?
Yeah,
2004.
Something like that. Yeah.
There was
so I think, and he was obviously working.
2002, 2004, 2007. Sorry, I'm getting that horribly wrong.
Yeah. So I mean, he was I don't know. Yeah.
No, he was definitely a big name.
Maybe not as big as he is now, but when I think of James Franco, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know what? That's a good question. That's a good question. What are his biggest box office movies? Here, I think there's a website called Box Office Mojo. I would think so. So that's what I'm thinking. Those movies are the ones that really catapulted him up there. But let me see here. What's the most? Oh, that's no good. That's pretty good. All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3.
That order.
In exactly that order. 403 million, 373 million, 336 million. Then you got Oz, Great and the Powerful, 234. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Knocked Up, which is a cameo role he had, so that's not much. This is the End. Yeah. So again, I think it was the Spider-Man movies that really pushed him up. But certainly, he's only added to that.
Yeah, but but in 2009 it was kind of in a weird space between the Spider-Man movies and the things that would come later, and like Oz the Great and Powerful and whatnot.
Yeah, so like his fourth greatest movie.
Yeah, his fourth highest grossing.
It wasn't until his fourth greatest movie that he really became a star.
Well, that's when he came back into the limelight in a huge way. That was.
I mean, his IMDb profile makes it pretty clear that he's been working the whole time.
Oh yeah, he's been working.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's doing the Labyrinth remake. I had no idea.
Yeah, I don't have any. I don't. That's another movie I haven't seen, so I had the list.
Oh.
I don't have any point of reference there.
Honestly, I'm not gonna. I can't.
I see Josh Peck is in that though, so I like Josh Peck from Jake and Josh.
I can't groan too hard, but you might be getting some visits from some friends of mine for admitting that. I'm just warning you.
Oh, yeah, you don't have friends. Okay.
Oh. All right. Good night, everybody. We're going.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. I look forward to their arrival. I will give them water.
Give them cake and water. Flavor Flav is also apparently in the Labyrinth remake they're doing.
Huh.
That's scary.
I'm sure he could be a character actor.
Yeah, he can play Flavor Flav in anything he wants to play. But yeah, so long and short of it is, back to the story at hand, it's a very interesting question, and we don't obviously have all the answers because we don't know what in that book is like just purely factual versus creative, etc. And that's something that the courts will have to suss out if it actually gets to that point. I have a feeling this is really going to hinge more on when the rights terminated, or if they terminated at all, rather than the actual issues of the autobiography and factual and what is or is not copyrightable. Still, though, some great questions to mull around in your brain if you get bored and want to think about copyright just a little bit more. Well, shifting gears here again into another Hollywood lawsuit, another Hollywood Reporter Esquire story. Jonathan, words have meaning. Fox has hit back at a lawsuit over New Girl, which we had discussed once upon a time. Long and short, back in January, two authors, Stephanie Counts and Sherry Gold, claimed that they came up with the idea for the show New Girl, which of course stars Zooey Deschanel on Fox. Deschanel. For some reason, I'm not pronouncing well today. I don't know what's going on. Long story short, though, they claimed that they came up with a very similar thing. They wanted Deschanel in it and had basically outlined exactly what New Girl was going to be. And then basically their show was called Square One, which, by the way, was also the name of a math television show shown in elementary school in the 1980s. I know, I used to watch it. And it became New Girl, and they got cut out of their fair share of the royalties, etc., etc., etc. Well, Fox is saying that basically the similarities between the show are limited exclusively to non-protectable ideas. I'll read directly here from the article, and which is in turn reading directly from the response. Plaintiff's basic claim of similarities that both works involve a woman who leaves a bad relationship and moves in with 3 single men. However, review of the works makes clear that their respective treatments of these underlying concepts are entirely dissimilar. The two women at the center of each of the works are very different, as are the supporting characters and plots, themes, settings, and dialogue. It hinges on things like they say at one point a AC/DC song being used at one point, and having a dog. I mean, it centers on the small things rather than the large, more important ones, basically. So that's what Fox is arguing and demanding that the suit be tossed. They're asking for a preliminary judgment in the case, hoping to put an end to it immediately.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, what I find interesting about it is, according to the original complaint, Fox offered a $10,000 settlement, which that, as far as settlement goes, is pretty much nothing.
Yeah, it's still interesting because settlement offers aren't an admission of guilt. They aren't an admission of guilt necessarily, but why were they offering it? I mean, you could hypothesize that they pay their lawyers much more to defend it, but I'm sure they have lawyers on retainer. And $10,000 settlement offer just to make an offer, I don't know. It seems there might be, I don't know. That makes you think maybe there is something here, and enough similarities can add up to that odd feeling we talk about sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It certainly seems. I mean, let's be real here, right? Because ideas do get stolen for TV shows or movies, and we talk about it. We always talk about it with a critical eye, like, oh, this is going to be a hard case to prove, or you'll never be able to prove similarities, just simple facts. But thing is, stories get stolen all the time.
Yeah, they do.
So it's inevitable that some of these cases are legitimate. And so who knows? Maybe this isn't one of them. Maybe it is. But just because Fox comes out here with a lot of bluster here in this one case, maybe that's a clue there is something here. Or maybe they're just really protective of what is a hot property for them at this very second. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. We really don't know what the story is here, but hopefully the facts bear out. And if in fact they did make a settlement offer, and if there's enough facts there, Zooey Deschanel being a suggested cast member or the star of the show, I should say, again, just an item, nothing particularly damaging, but with a lot of other facts that ended up making the final show, could sway someone to see that some of their work at least was appropriated by Fox.
Yeah. Well, and the issue, oftentimes, you talk about a lot of ideas get stolen, but also noting that a lot of ideas are not copyrightable by themselves. So even if you can prove the idea was stolen, you then have to prove that your idea qualifies for copyright protection and that this use is an infringement of that copyrightable and that protectable idea, that protectable element. And that's oftentimes more difficult than proving the idea was stolen.
Yeah, it's always an uphill battle. It's the old chicken and egg thing. Don't tell your story to anyone, but you have to tell your story to people, and then they steal it.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that you run into with these cases. Is, like you said, you have to tell the story to everyone. You have to put it out there, and that creates problems, legal problems both sides. Because if you're on like Fox's side here, well, of course we heard it. Of course we knew about it. Of course they were telling everyone. They were on a street sign, waving it around at people as they were entering courts. It makes it easy to show where they might have gotten the idea from, but it doesn't necessarily make it easy to prove that it was an infringement. So, I guess I'm curious to see how this one unfolds and what the judge says. This one, but it looks like it's going to be a down and dirty case, so it's going to make it kind of exciting. No love lost yet. Well, speaking of no love lost, Prindle Law, we've talked about them a whole hell of a lot. I'll spare all the gory details. Long story short, they were a firm that got heavily involved in what's oftentimes called copyright trolling. They would gather and slurp IP addresses of people sharing content illegally on BitTorrent and sue them in massive John Doe lawsuits, hoping to get the information through a subpoena so they could send out threatening letters. Very well known, became very famous for it. But they also ran into a lot of trouble. They had the whole soap opera deal where the person who allegedly was the head of the company that they were representing showed up and had no idea what was going on, and a whole bunch of other issues. And so basically it was revealed that a lot of the companies they were supposedly representing as clients were really shell companies owned by the attorneys. It was a big mess. They ended up having a lot of their cases thrown out, and now they've been hit with a $261,000 sanction. For some reason I read that 6 as a 9 briefly. A $261,000 sanction. saying that, hey, you know, basically that accusing them of bullying them and using overly aggressive tactics and making a variety of other ethical missteps in the courtroom. However, John Steele and the other lawyers involved with Prindle Law, when it came time to pay up this said sanction, said they were broke. And when they provided, were pressed to provide evidence of hardship, they supposedly provided some documentation. However, the judge determined that was incomplete, and then tacked on an interest penalty for late payment, which then raised it to $287,300, which they have since posted as a bond, pending further, I guess, further pleadings in the case. But yeah, so pretty interesting that they would claim to be broke. According to this article at Ars Technica, they have made some $4.4 million in settlements through this.
What I find interesting in this story is the explanation Steele provided, specifically one part of it, of how Prenda came to be, according to Joe Mullen at Ars Technica. It says here, Steele and his partner, Paul Hansmeyer, were early pioneers in catching thieves and hackers who engaged in stealing copyrighted works and other computer-related misdeeds, including computer hacking and copyright infringement. Now, you might think, well, early pioneers. Well, that must be a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it was 2010 until November 11. I don't know if I would call you
the good
early
old
pioneers.
days.
Yeah, good old days of the 2010s.
I
back
remember
when the pioneering
4 years ago.
pioneering days when they were really some of the first people to catch thieves and hackers.
We hopped in our Canastota wagons and headed west to catch some of them there hackers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're somehow hearkening to an earlier day, like maybe they had another life or something, you know, pre this stuff, 2010, where they were back in the early 90s catching hackers, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems like they're referring to 2010 to 2011, and that's just not the early days, I don't think. That's not early pioneering days of catching thieves and hackers on the internet. I could be wrong, but that just seemed funny to me.
It does. And, yeah, so it's just interesting to see how they received millions of dollars and then they claimed financial hardship and they were unable to pay $261,000. I mean, granted, that is a very large sanction. Let's not get that wrong. That's $250,000 plus.
Sure.
It's a huge sanction, but if you have $4.4 million in the bank, it's still a decent chunk, but yeah, it's not unpayable either.
Right. Yes. If you still have the money, and you have at least in assets that, you know, let's say you just burned $500,000, you don't have it anymore, or you bought a stock and it went out of business, you don't have it anymore. But if you have assets to pay for it, yeah, I mean, I would guess they're trying to avoid paying out of their personal assets as much as possible. So
probably
that's probably what's at stake here. You know, there's talk about how money was divided into multiple bank accounts and different things that are maybe suspicious of some sort of motive, some intent to move the money around. But I guess, like he points out, not necessarily crimes in themselves, like reading a website that was talking about how to stash cash abroad. Yeah, yeah, I mean, you could say there's something fishy there, but
there's a lot fishy there, actually.
He's just educating himself, you know, in a way of hiding money somewhere, which a lot of individuals and corporations attempt to do.
Yes, they do, and when they do it, people think it's fishy then too. So yeah, there you go.
Right, but there are loopholes in our tax code and other places that allow for different kinds of money manipulation. So
and there you go. Unfortunately, and it's still technically legal, like you said, in most cases.
Right. So anyway, 4.4 though, they did pay taxes on that, right? So let's not. You got to remember that too, because if you qualify into that tax bracket, that's a chunk of the money's gone. You could count on what, 40%, something like that, being gone, taken out. I mean, assuming you don't find some serious tax loopholes, which they probably tried to. So they didn't get 4.4 million. You know, that's less taxes, and now they've got 280, and now you're gonna have this settlement and this penalty and this amount. So I don't know how much they'll end up with in the end, but certainly not anything that was worth the time spent in these lawsuits.
No. You got to remember court costs and other things as well. Yeah, it adds up. It adds up.
Yeah.
It adds up very quickly. Well, real quickly here, I wanted to talk about this impending, I should almost said anti-privacy legislation, privacy legislation in Canada, which has many worry it could actually reignite the flame of copyright trolling in Canada. The long and short of it is, we talked previously about Voltage Pictures versus Tech Savvy. Tech Savvy, TEKSAVVY, is an ISP in Canada. They fought an effort by Voltage Pictures to do very much what Parental Law was doing, except Voltage Pictures was doing, legitimately. They're an actual company with an actual product. They actually are behind the movie Dallas Buyers Club, among others. So they're at least a legitimate organization doing legitimate copyright work. It's just you can question their tactics a little bit. Anyways, they were doing the same thing, filing a massive lawsuit against suspected BitTorrent pirates, seeking a subpoena to get their contact information, and then wanting to go write threatening letters and seek settlements with them, but they were wanting to do it in Canada. Well, the federal court there, has not shot them down, but has required Tech Savvy to hand over that information in a very like, I guess you would say, transparent and court-monitored way, to prevent Voltage Pictures from abusing the information that they get. Canadians generally have applauded that, saying it's going to put a crimp or make the quote-unquote copyright troll efforts in Canada impossible. However, now there is this new privacy bill, which is the main target of the bill, is to make it so that if there is a breach of your private information, the corporation has to tell you. And we have something similar to that in the U.S., if I remember correctly. I might be remembering wrong. But supposedly we have something similar to that in the U.S. Well, they don't have it in Canada. But in addition to that, the issue is it also makes it legal for corporations to share private data between themselves without letting you know, and they can do it, with immunity. And so the fear is that in a situation like the Tech Savvy Voltage Pictures one, rather than Tech Savvy going, you have to come back for a subpoena, Tech Savvy go, oh sure, here you go, here's the data. Which then leads to a simple question. Why would they do that? That would be incredibly stupid of your ISP to do that. Incredibly stupid. Why? I mean, why does anyone think that's possible?
If
or
they,
likely?
well, so to be fair, I think we talked about, what was it last week? We were talking about how the how the music industry, how it was Sony was not being forthright with Pandora about Pandora wants to respect their copyrights, but they won't tell them the songs. We talk about Content ID and how I talked with that attorney Viacom and how she was blown away by the fact that people don't always do the right thing with Content ID on the copyright holder side. I think if corporations have the opportunity to do something and it benefits them, then the opportunity is there to do it. Now, why would they do it? Again, I think you asked the question meaning that it would be bad for business for them if people find out. And I think that's a good point. But if the opportunity is there, I think what drives a lot of this frustration is the vagueness, right, of the sort of quote-unquote strict rules that they'll have to follow to disclose the information. The fact that they have the option of not disclosing it until they're good and ready. The fact that we don't know anything about it. So it could be my information being shared, and we don't know. And when you don't know, that leads you to believe that the worst case is always possible. And I mean, that's reasonable. I mean, at the end of the day, that's reasonable if you say this person that you don't know will control your information and can give it to someone else you don't know and not tell you. I don't care how strict you say the rules are. To me, of course, it's going to sound suspicious.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, and this is, of course, just one of many potential complaints one would have about this. I mean, there are many, many reasons why I would not want companies to be eligible to share my private data between themselves without, like you said, any oversight at all. There's about 1 million reasons, but this one would be pretty low down on my list, personally.
Right. Well, yeah, it would be.
I think there are many other situations I fear far more than a copyright trolling campaign getting around requiring a subpoena.
Then again, you've seen enough cases where, a company of certain companies or certain organizations would definitely attempt to get that information and would try to make it worthwhile to the ISP in any way they could to get that information. So
Rather than
Yeah.
forcing me to get a subpoena, charge them $30 a name or something like that.
Right. I mean, you know, if I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if the possibility is there for them to legally do it, right? We're talking about an act that makes it legal. We don't know the strict rules, so again, you assume the worst. Makes it legally possible, then, you know, again, I can see it. When I keep saying strict rules, that comes from Industry Minister James Moore, who made a statement on April 15th saying that, quote, strict rules on the type of personal information companies can disclose to other organizations will be put in place by the Act, and that companies will have to follow those strict rules before releasing the information. So, you know, I tend to believe that the rules would sound reasonable enough. Again, it comes back to the question of how much stuff should happen without us knowing about it, too. You know, is it reasonable that some acts of law enforcement have to take place without telling us? Yes, I think so. Is it reasonable that companies should exchange information about matters of copyright like this without going for a subpoena, without going through any court system, and have the opportunity to do that, even if they choose not to, right? Even if we assume everyone's great. Should that opportunity be there? I think that's a good question to ask.
I agree. I do agree, actually. That's a very good question to ask.
Yeah, so you talk about worse things. I mean, you're talking about, I think when you say that sort of thing, you know, higher priority, I'm talking about pedophiles, right? Yeah. Immediate threats of violence, self-harm, immediate situations that require intervention, or life can be lost in a few hours or minutes or a day. And that is where I say, okay, yeah, that's fine. But, you know, we have to be, I think you have to be really specific on that stuff. And we'll see. Hopefully, as this act goes, maybe it'll get a little better. I'm sure this public, somewhat outrage, I guess, might influence that a little bit.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get a little more clarity in some of these areas, too, while we're at it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like you said, it's the unknown that's driving people crazy.
Yeah.
And that's always, and then realistically, that's kind of always the case. We saw it a lot, like even like Sopa and Pippa in the United States.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the unknown is something people fear, and you know, more or less rightfully so.
Yeah, more or less. Well, our final story today deals with the Russian social network VKontakte. I mentioned them briefly earlier.
Now, what I want to know, and what you're going to explain, is I'm going to be curious to find out why the story's at the end. I'm sure you're going to explain it.
I mean,
because you usually have a reason for that. You know, no. It's odd, it's weird, it's funny. You know, there's the last story is a prestigious place.
Well, it's a strangely prestigious place, but honestly, if I had known the Special 301 report was going to be released today, then I would have probably put it number 2 just so it could dovetail with it. But that didn't happen. But I had no idea. You know, that seems like a more natural dovetail now, but it didn't happen.
But it's just a placement of luck then.
But no, I mean, I have my reason for wanting to talk about this last, okay. and I will definitely come to it. But yeah, in hindsight, if I had known what I know now, it would not be last. I would probably put, you know, what we just covered last, honestly, because it is kind of weird in its own right, and it's out. And that would have been last because it's kind of outside of traditional copyright. It's something kind of weird and off to the side. This one, however, what's weird, what got me thinking about this one, and I'll get to it in a minute, but basically, VKontakte has signed a memo of understanding that's also been signed by, I think, 36 other large internet sites in the country, a memo of understanding of practices of dealing with piracy, specifically of movies. And basically, it's an agreement to do what it can to block the re-uploading of infringing material once it's been pulled down. VKontakte is, of course, known as a notorious market in the Section 30, Special 301 report. It is known and widely regarded as a haven for pirated content in Russia, but it is also the largest social network in Russia. Think like Facebook in Russia. In fact, it even looks like Facebook, you know?
Yeah, like old
so,
Facebook.
It looks a whole lot like Facebook. It might say it's a pirated version of Facebook in some ways. But long and short of it is they've signed this memorandum. They're going to implement it sometime in the coming month. And theoretically, at least, that means we're going to see less pirated content, especially movies, on the site very, very soon. Now, the reason I wanted to put it last, and the reason I was going to bring it up here, was because of the whole controversy surrounding the ownership of it. Remember, the original founder of it was forced out not that long ago. And Putin, and it was supposedly, at least, the allegations are that friends of Vladimir Putin have taken over the site and are basically managing it.
Wow.
That now, after they take it over, they do this hostile takeover of it. Now it signs this memorandum of understanding suddenly. Seems kind of odd, according to a lot of people, including a lot of Russians.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I just Googled VKontakte because I was going to go to the website, and I see one of the top stories is from the Moscow Times. It's actually a story from a couple days ago. Actually, it was last edited today, apparently. No, I think it was a couple days ago. I'm pretty sure their timestamp just isn't very clear on editing. Anyway, the founder, Pavel Durov, apparently acquired citizenship of St. Kitts and Nevis. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
I don't know. Shortly before fleeing Russia amid a conflict with security services over data protection and privacy, a news report has said he was fired and received a passport to St. Kitts and Nevis by contributing $250,000 to the Caribbean nation's sugar industry in February. An unidentified source close to the company's shareholders said. So that's interesting. Yeah, this is like a, I don't know, a little espionage, a little, you know.
Yeah, isn't it?
A little salacious. That's not quite the right word, but it's definitely a little juicy.
It is definitely a very interesting, very juicy story, and the timing of this particular signing is very, very interesting in the midst of it, you know?
Yeah, and just to be clear here, because this story on Torrent Freak isn't super clear on this, but who is the person who makes this memorandum of understanding available? Is it the USTR? Who provided them with this document to sign?
My understanding is that it's one that's been going around Russia. I have no idea who provided it originally.
Okay.
I don't think it's the USTR, but I think it's one among Russian sites.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. So it's a Russian-led initiative, most likely by the government?
Mostly is what I understand, yes.
Okay, I was just curious, because it's like they mentioned the 301 report and how,
actually, no, it says right here, it's Roskomnadzor, Russia's telecoms watchdog.
Okay, yeah, I missed that. You're right, there it is. Russia's telecoms watchdog.
I know I botched that pronunciation, but I can't pronounce English right now, so I have no hope on Russian.
Yeah, that looks about right to me, Roskomnadzor. So,
Roskomnadzor, that sounds like a dragon from Lord of the Rings to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for it. Apparently, it was established. It says the Federal Service for Supervision of Communications, Information Technology, and Mass Media. That's the official English translation of their whole kind of name. But the organization, that kind of, I don't know if it's abbreviation or what, is, like you said, Roskomnadzor.
You know, your name might be too long when the title in Wikipedia spills to 2 lines on most web browsers.
Yeah, you're right. It is pretty long. I guess it was established in 2008. And obviously, yes, government run. So, you know, that only further. It's not just Russia's telecom watchdog. It's Russia's telecom, because we have watchdogs that are not government here in the U.S. This is a watchdog that is a federal, according to Wikipedia, a federal executive body responsible for overseeing the media, including electronic media. So, it's all a little too governmental. Sometimes when, you know, and of course, different standards of living, different, you know, democracy, pro-democracy, other things that exist, other ways a country can be run. Not everyone agrees on the best way, but, you know, if people like the way it's in the U.S. and the democracy we have, and they talk about the government, you can always look over to Russia if you want to see somewhere where there's just a little more control in place.
Yeah, a lot more control sometimes. But yeah, so that's the reason. Yes, you were. And I'm not. But that's the reason I wanted to mention it last, was because of all that weirdness around it. That wasn't actually directly mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, some you know, we got that movie, The Craigslist Killer. Maybe someday we'll have the, I don't know, the V-Contact Conspiracy.
The V-Contact Conspiracy. Instead of the Bourne Conspiracies, the V-Contact Conspiracy. Oh, man. Well, Patrick, I'm all out of copyright news. We're wrapping it up just about on time. Any final thoughts?
No. That's everything. I'm good.
I think we might be a minute or two over, but not bad, you know?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Usual. Well, on that note, everyone, my name is Jonathan Bailey. I am from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. I am also username Plagiarism Today at Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and pretty much everywhere else you can think of.
I'm Patrick O'Keefe. I blog at managingcommunities.com and patrickokeefe.com. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, as well as LinkedIn as Patrick O'Keefe.
On that note, everyone, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.